You walk into Dan Murphy's, BWS, Liquorland, even the little independent on the corner. You see the same familiar whiskey bottles again and again. Big labels, bold claims, smooth, premium, oldest, classic. And the price tags look kind of normal. Until you do one simple thing. You stop looking at the shelf price and you look at the unit price. Dollars per 100 milliliters. That's where the tricks start. Because in Australia, a lot of the biggest whiskey brands win on familiarity, not value. In today's video, we're exposing 7 whiskey brands Australians should avoid. And at the end, I'll reveal 3 whiskies that are actually worth it. Plus, I'll show you the exact label tricks to watch for, so you can spot these issues yourself next time you're shopping. Now, let's kick things off with number 7. Ballantine's finest blended Scotch whisky, the everyday Europe's favourite style blend, commonly found at Dan Murphy's and BWS. On the surface, Ballantine's looks like a safe pick. It's a massive global brand. It's positioned as a classic Scotch you can mix, gift, or pour at a party. And Pernod Ricard even markets Ballantine's as the #1 Scotch whisky in Europe. But here's what they don't tell you at the shelf. First, it's a no-age statement blend. That matters because without an age statement, you're not being told the age of the whiskey components. You're buying the brand story, not a declared maturity. Second, look at the bottle strength. Ballantine's Finest is commonly sold at 40% alcohol by volume. That's the minimum most people accept, and it often comes with a lighter body when mixed with ice. Third, check what you pay for every day. It's regularly priced around $44 for a 700 milliliter bottle at major retailers. If you want a blend for mixing, choose based on unit price and bottle strength first. Then only pay extra if the label gives you something concrete like an age statement or higher alcohol by volume. Because number 6 proves how easy it is to overpay for smooth. Canadian Club Blended Whiskey, the easy drinking and pre-mix famous whiskey, commonly found at Dan Murphy's, BWS, and most bottle shops. Canadian Club is everywhere in Australia, and the brand leans hard into one promise: smooth, easy, mixable. You'll even see it pushed in ready-to-drink formats and bundles. Here's the issue. First, the unit price is sneaky for what you're getting. A 700 milliliter bottle is commonly listed around $46.95. That works out to about $6.71 per 100 milliliters. Canadian Club Original 1858 is described as being aged longer than the 3 years required by law. That sounds impressive, but notice what's missing. No actual number. Not 4 years,
Not 8 years, just longer than required. That's a classic soft claim. True, but not useful for comparing value. Third, the ownership and scale matters. Canadian Club sits inside the Suntory Global Spirits portfolio. When a brand is built for volume and mixed serves, your money goes more into distribution and marketing than into giving you a higher spec bottle. Who should be cautious? If you want to step up for sipping, look for an age statement or a higher bottling strength that actually tells you what you're paying for. Because number 5 is a perfect example of Australian shelf familiarity hiding major behind-the-scenes change. The famous Grouse blended Scotch whisky, the classic pub pour blend, commonly found at Dan Murphy's, BWS, and independent bottle shops. The famous Grouse is one of those bottles Australians trust because it's always been there. It's the safe, someone will drink it whiskey. And that's exactly why it can quietly become a bad deal. First, pricing. You'll often see it around $59.99 for a 700 milliliter bottle. That's about $8.57 per 100 milliliters for a no-age statement blend. That's the kind of unit price where you should start expecting a clearly defined product, not just a familiar bird on a label. Second, behind the scenes, there's been a major ownership shift. The Edrington Group announced it was selling the famous Grouse to William Grant & Sons, with the deal later reported as completed in mid-2025. Ownership changes don't automatically mean quality drops, but they do mean strategy changes. Sourcing decisions can change.
marketing can change.
And price positioning can change. Third, the product positioning is built for being a dependable blended scotch.
If you want blended scotch for mixing, keep your unit price lower. If you want sipping scotch, move your money toward bottles that clearly state age, strength, and processing choices. Now, if you think these first three are just normal supermarket whiskey, number 4 shows how premium language can be used without premium.
Clarity. Jameson Irish Whiskey, the triple distilled smooth global favorite, commonly found at Dan Murphy's, BWS, and basically every bar in Australia. Jameson is one of the most purchased whiskies in Australia, and I get why. It's easy, it's consistent, and the marketing is strong. Pernod Ricard describes it as triple distilled, which is repeatedly used to support the idea of exceptional smoothness. But here's the reality check. First, the price is often higher than people realize for a no-age statement bottle. A 700 milliliter bottle is commonly listed around $54.90. That's about $7.84 per 100 milliliters. Second, the triple distilled claim can mislead your brain. Triple distillation can make a spirit lighter. Smoother, sure, but smooth is not the same as better. If it's smooth because it's lighter and designed for mixing, that's fine, but you shouldn't pay premium unit prices just because the label trained you to equate smooth with quality.
Third, ownership matters again. Jameson is part of Pernod Ricard, one of the largest drinks companies on earth. That scale is why it's everywhere. If you're buying Jameson for sipping and you care about getting a step up, this is often where people overspend. If you're still watching and finding this helpful, do me a favor. Drop the number 37 in the comments. It helps me know you're getting value from these investigations. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Alright, let's keep going with number 3. Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 Tennessee Whiskey, the charcoal mellowed icon, commonly found at Dan Murphy's, BWS, and every pub back bar. Jack Daniel's is one of the most recognizable spirits on the planet, and the brand story is powerful. Brown-Forman, the owner, highlights the charcoal mellowing method, filtering through sugar maple charcoal, and positions it as part of what makes Jack. But here's where the Aussie shelf reality hits. First, price. A 700 milliliter bottle is commonly listed around $51.95. That's roughly $7.42 per 100 milliliters. Second, it's still typically bottled at 40% alcohol by volume, so you're paying a premium unit price without getting higher strength and without getting an age statement. That's a value gap. Third, the marketing leans on uniqueness, but your use case
matters. If you're mixing with cola, the charcoal mellowing story does not justify a higher unit price compared to other mixers. And if you're sipping, this bottle is built for mass market consistency, not for delivering the detail you'd expect at that unit price. Who should be cautious? If you want a sipping whiskey at this price point, start looking at higher strength or age-stated options, because number 2 is a masterclass in how world's number 1 can distract you from what's actually in the bottle. Jim Beam White Label Kentucky Straight Bourbon, the world's number 1 bourbon style entry bottle, commonly found at Dan Murphy's, BWS, and everywhere you can. By Premix Cans, Jim Beam White Label is pure shelf power. It's bundled, it's promoted, it's everywhere. And you'll often see world's number 1 language in retail listings and promotions. Here's what to watch. First, price. A 700 milliliter bottle is commonly listed around $45.95. That's about $6.56 per 100 milliliters. For an entry-level bourbon, that is not cheap. Second, the brand is built around volume and mixability. And that's not an insult, but it's a warning. If a whiskey's main purpose is to hold up in cola, you should not be paying near premium unit pricing unless there's a concrete reason. Third, look at the corporate context. Jim Beam sits inside Suntory Global Spirits, which rebranded from Beam Suntory. When a global group owns a giant portfolio, their incentives are scale, consistency, and shelf share. If you think you're buying good bourbon because it's famous, you might be buying marketing momentum. And if you want bourbon for sipping, jump up to bottles that give you a clearer statement of what you're buying. Because number one is the one Australians should avoid, for a reason that goes beyond taste and value. Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey Flavored Liqueur, the sweet novelty peanut butter pour, commonly found at Dan Murphy's, BWS, and independent liquor retailers. Screwball isn't positioned like a traditional whiskey. It's a flavored liqueur-style product that rides on the word whiskey for credibility. And in Australia, it has had a serious documented problem. First, a real recall. Food. Standards Australia New Zealand issued a recall alert on 21 August 2024 due to the presence of an undeclared allergen, sesame, affecting all batches where the allergen wasn't declared. That's not internet rumor, that's a national regulator notice. Second, the product positioning encourages casual dessert drink consumption. Third, pricing is usually high for what it is. You'll often see it around $65 for a 750 milliliter bottle, which lands around $8.79 per 100 milliliters. So you're paying premium unit pricing for novelty, sweetness, and flavoring. And after a recall like that, you should be extra strict about checking labels. Who should be? Cautious? Anyone with sesame allergy or intolerance should take the recall history seriously and check current labeling. And anyone trying to avoid sugar-heavy spirits should treat this as a sweet liqueur product, not as a normal whiskey. Better approach. If you want a dessert-style drink, buy it with eyes open. Read every label. Check allergen statements. And don't let the word whiskey trick you into thinking it's in the same category as traditional whiskey. Now that we've exposed the ones to avoid, it's time to shift gears, because not everything on Australian shelves is trying to trick you. Here are 3 whiskies that are actually worth your money. The Glendronach 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. This is what worth it looks like on a label. First, it gives you a clear age statement, 12 years. That immediately sets a minimum expectation for maturity, and it's measurable. Second, it's bottled at 43% alcohol by volume, which is a noticeable step up from the 40% entry-level crowd. Third, it's often explicitly described as non-chill filtered and natural color in retailer listings. That's a transparency signal. Whether you personally care about filtration and color or not, the point is the same. The product tells you more about what it is. Practical note. You'll usually find it in the single malt section, not the blended wall, and it's often not at eye level. Look mid-shelf and top shelf and compare unit price against other age-stated malts. The Arran 10-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. If you want a clean, honest, well-specified whiskey, Arran 10 is one of the easiest recommendations. First, it gives you an age statement, 10 years. Second, it's commonly bottled at 46% alcohol by volume. That's a serious jump in strength and body compared to 40% blends. Third, it's frequently described as non-chill filtered and natural color. Again, the point isn't to sound fancy. The point is that you're paying for a product that is willing to state its specs clearly. Practical note. This one is a great bridge bottle. It's approachable enough for newer drinkers, but the specs are strong enough that your money doesn't feel wasted. Starward 2-fold Australian whiskey. If you want something local that actually feels modern and transparent, Starward is a solid pick. First, it's made and matured in Australia, and Starward describes 2-fold as a wheat and single malt whiskey matured in Australian red wine barrels. That tells you exactly where a big part of the flavour comes from. Second, it's a genuine Australian whiskey you can actually find without hunting niche drops. And that matters for value, because rare is often overpriced. Third, you're not paying for a century-old story. You're paying for a clear style choice and a clear maturation approach. Practical note, this one is versatile. Neat on ice or in cocktails. If you're the type who wants one bottle that can do multiple jobs, 2-fold is built for that. So how do you spot these tricks yourself when I'm not there with you in the aisle? Here's your quick checklist. First, always check the unit price. Dollars per 100 milliliters.
not the shelf price. Two bottles can look $10 apart, and the cheaper one can be worse value if it's smaller. Second, look for an age statement if you're buying for sipping. If the label doesn't tell you any age, you're buying a style and a story, not a declared maturity. That can still be fine, but it should usually cost less. Third, watch for soft claims. Smooth, premium, aged longer than required by law. Those phrases are not numbers, they're not a comparison tool, they're persuasion. Fourth, understand colouring language. In Scotch, plain caramel colouring is permitted, and you may see it declared as colour 150A. F-Sans also explains that additives can be listed like colour 150A on labels. If you want to avoid colouring, look for bottles that explicitly say natural colour. Fifth, use alcohol by volume as a quick quality filter. A lot of mass market bottles sit at 40%. That doesn't automatically mean bad, but once your unit price climbs, you should expect more than the minimum. Higher strength often signals more flavour carry-through, especially if you drink it neat. Sixth, be extra careful with flavoured whiskey products. If it's sweetened, flavoured or labelled as a liqueur, treat it like a different category. Check allergens, check the label details, and don't assume it behaves like traditional whiskey. Seventh, follow the ownership. Big global owners don't automatically mean bad product, but they do often mean the priority is shelf dominance. If you're paying more, make sure the bottle is giving you measurable reasons to pay more. Look, the Australian liquor landscape is full of marketing designed to
Make you spend more while getting less.
But when you know what to look for, you take back control. You vote with your wallet. And companies notice. If this video helped you see through the marketing, do me a solid. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who needs to see it. Because the more Australians who know these tricks, the harder it gets for brands to get away with them. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next episode where we uncover more hidden truths behind everyday Aussie products.